pointing his threats at us, not just at our neighbors. So we really have no option, right?
That's correct. I mean, the conundrum with North Korea is our normal ways for solving a problem with a foreign country, like diplomacy and sanctions, have not worked so far. That's why we have to keep talking about military options. Now, the Joint Chiefs just a couple days ago were talking about military options, and they reminded people that even if we use a full-on air campaign, we probably cannot get all of North Korea's nuclear weapons. That means we would have to invade. In simplest terms, that means there would be a lot of collateral damage for us and also for our allies like South Korea and like Japan. So then we circle back to diplomatic options, and that's why President Trump is pushing for diplomacy here. This visit to South Korea is very important, but even more important are the meetings he will have with the leaders of China and Russia, because it's China and Russia that really have leverage over North Korea. That's why this two-week visit is so important for this crisis with North Korea.
But they have to see the military hardware. They have to believe, beyond the talking and beyond the diplomacy, Colonel, is a legitimate military option. Have you seen it? These guys are the guys in charge, of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense. So you know, have you seen it?
Look, I know General Dunford, and I think that he's made a very clear statement of the fact that to do certain things, you have to have troops on the ground. This goes back, again, to Clinton. Clinton proposed the same thing. I mean, I've worked these options, and look, I've walked the terrain. I've been to the DMZ. I've been to Panmunjom. This is no small issue. With that said, Brian, you cannot step away from having credible military force available to back up the diplomacy. That's the one thing that's been absent during the last 30 years of negotiations. And let me add to this. We need to deal with China. The reason that North Korea is where it's at is because China has allowed it to be a client state. So my advice to President Trump is you need to use North Korea to force China to do the right thing. I think the Chinese, next to the South Koreans, have the most to lose by an armed conflict. So we need to remind people in a region what the consequences would be of an armed conflict, but at the same time be prepared to use one.
Right. By the way, David, we're waiting in any language, in any country, in any custom. This looks like an imminent toast, and then President Trump will be coming up there shortly. David, the other thing is pretty clear, is that China does not want to spend this whole meeting with the President of the United States talking about North Korea. Do you think they're ready to say something of significance?
I think that behind the scenes there will be a lot of talk about North Korea, and I think China will say the right things. But the question is, are they doing the right things? Are they using the economic leverage they have over North Korea to press North Korea into a diplomatic resolution with the U.S.? I'm not sure that's happening, and that's what Trump has to try and see through the dialogue and the rhetoric and try and get China to act. And that hasn't happened so far. That's what's so important. But it's also Russia. Remember, Russia is also potentially supporting North Korea and supporting nuclear proliferation.
Do me a favor. Hold that thought. Here's the President of the United States with his prepared remarks. And then, of course, we have we don't need the translator.
Well, thank you very much. And this